Dan has some other things going on, but tonight we got it going on right here, and we got Dan the Mayor Gibson in the house, the Mayor of the City of Natchez. Good evening, Mayor Gibson. How you doing?
Hello, Calvin. Man, I'm doing good. I'm great. How are you? How are you this evening?
Doing just good, Mayor.
Good.
You know, it's always a pleasure to have you here on Tuesday night. We missed you last Tuesday night. I had your regular meeting down at the City Hall.
Boy, we did. Well, I think we started with a budget finance committee meeting at 4. I think we finally got out of there. Our regular meeting was at 6. Calvin, I think we got out about 9 o'clock. It was a long meeting.
Well, I know y'all had to have dinner. Somebody brought y'all dinner.
No, actually, you just grab a cracker or two before you go in and hope for the best.
I heard that one. But Mayor, you know, it's always a pleasure to have you here on your talk show on Tuesday night, because when you come in, the people that listen to us can find out what's going on.
What's going on? That's right. Calvin, a lot's going on. I had a really good trip to Jackson Thursday, Friday. It was a good time to reconnect with some old friends, to visit with some legislators, to visit with our lobbyists. We had a visit at Archives and History with the director there, Katie Blunt. We also had a visit at the Crime Lab with the director of the Mississippi Crime Lab, Mr. Sam Howell. It was, to say the least, a very productive trip.
Well, you know, speaking of the Mississippi Archives and History, you know, this probably old news to some people and brand new news to others that you was able to receive $350,000 to do some roof work at City Hall, correct?
That's right. Well, I tell you, it was actually 2 grants that came to projects here within the city. A project to, yes, put a new roof on City Hall, the historic old City Hall, and the roof, I think, is about as old. And we're told that the great Tony Byrne, mayor back in the 60s, couldn't even tell us how old that roof is.
Okay.
So thanks to a grant from the state of Mississippi through Archives and History, we're getting a new roof, and then a historic structure, very important structure on Ellicott Hill, the house on Ellicott Hill. You know, that's where the American flag was first raised here in these parts back in the late 1700s. That important structure is getting a needed restoration of its front galleries.
I tell you, you know, you're out there working hard and you're lobbying. But I don't know if you know today, there's an article in the paper, but we carry the Mississippi News Network out of Jackson,
yes,
South Communication. And all day today, they have been saying how Natchez was the first city to offer the incentive to move your business here.
Yes.
So we have been on the news, pretty much every news break today. They've been talking about Natchez being the first city in Mississippi to
Wow, I didn't even know they were carrying that statewide yet. We issued the press release here, I think, just yesterday. But we are excited to say that people are already taking advantage of this promotion that we have been running to get people to invest in Natchez. If someone is a bona fide, remote worker anywhere in the country, and they're willing to relocate to Natchez and invest in at least $150,000 real estate, then we're giving them an incentive to move here, about $6,000. They'll get that back, or the city will get that back in the increased, tax collections. And we opened up 30 slots, the only municipality to do this in the Deep South. And we already have about a third of those slots committed. And the first one just signed the deal, an attorney moving here from New Orleans.
Well, like I say, it's been on our statewide news all day today, so I want to bring that to your attention. But, as mayor and a lobbyist, those things kind of plays in hand, because by you able to think outside of the box during a pandemic time, how to draw people to our community, to build our tax revenue, to offer that incentive to people to move their business to our community that can virtually have meetings from anywhere in the United States as of now. I give you a lot of credit for thinking outside the box and coming up with that plan, you and your team, to make that happen for our community.
Well, thank you. I'm just one of these guys. I like to get things moving, but I can't take all the credit. This idea was actually an idea that a few others in the community grabbed hold of, and we while we're the only city in the Deep South to do it, I will tell you, there are other cities doing this, including Oklahoma City and I believe Charleston, if I'm not mistaken. But we're really excited about that. Let me tell you, we're also going to be making the news for some other things. Um, in this pandemic year, it's exciting to see Natchez setting some records. But we now are sitting on a record as far as our building permits issued, as far as new business announcements and new business openings, the new jobs that we're starting to add up, and a few right on the horizon. They're about to be announced. Of course, LPS moving into that beautiful building downtown, the LPS, Loss Prevention Services building, right there on Franklin Street. And Calvin, we're also excited about some things going on that we're looking at in recreation, that we're looking at in terms of infrastructure here in Natchez, improvements that we're working on right now, and also some great tourism projects that are in the works.
Well, I know you guys have been working, and as you speak about the great things, you got Harbor Freight coming into the city of Natchez. That's coming in, some other jobs.
Yes.
But one thing I've been learning as I go out to the community and talk to merchants trying to sell them advertising for their business, somewhere along the way, you're going to have some type of virtual job fair, I guess, to get these people the help they need to conduct their business. Because, I go to a lot of places, they say, well, man, I would advertise, but I need one thing more than advertising. I say, what that? We need some help. I can't find any good help. So maybe we can get some people excited because during this time, everyone needs a job and employers actually need workers. So
they do, and that's why workforce development is so important, and that's why we are working now with the county, the school district, and CoLin, and we're also working with others, and we're excited about things that Alcorn is doing. We have a real opportunity in our community to have more job training going than ever before. And in the very near future, you'll be hearing more about that. We've been working behind the scenes on our task force on workforce development, has put together a workforce assessment. We're going over that assessment now to see what is being offered in the community, what the needs are. And we're about to have a meeting with the parties involved to see what strategy is best for us. And we're looking at the Steckler building on the high school campus. And we're looking at a program that could tap into folks as well, people at the age of ninth grade, and getting them excited about a career. We're looking at some other locations around Natchez also, downtown, perhaps some business development and small business development. And we met last week with some folks from the state who are helping in small communities, and we're looking at doing a pilot program for them right here in Natchez on small business development. So there are some great things on the horizon.
Well, Dan, you do a lot of great things, and you just don't know how the word gets out what you're doing. On last week, someone called us. They was out on Jefferson Davis Boulevard. They were doing free COVID testing.
Yes.
They said they were part of the mayor task force, and they were doing it Blue Professional. And they said, we're part of the mayor task force. And it was just proud of one of our announcers. The mayor got a talk show every Tuesday night on our radio station, but you wasn't able to come in prior to that task.
That's right. That's right. But that was last Thursday. Yeah. Had a great turnout. And I want to say we have a great, it's our mental health task force. Clemetha Gons here in Natchez is chairing that task force. And we're very grateful to Dr. Bruce and the clinic there on Jefferson for hosting that free testing. We also understand very soon there'll be another free testing being offered at the beautiful new health clinic on North Martin Luther King Street, Dr. Blanche Bell. They've already had one or two and are gearing up for another. Another thing I want to say when we are talking about COVID, I got vaccinated this morning. And it was about an hour or more, standing in a well-organized line. And I didn't want to buck anybody. I wanted to wait my turn. And the National Guard, the Mississippi Department of Health, and our own Natchez Police Department did an outstanding job getting about 600 people through the vaccination line today alone. And I believe that as this continues, we're going to see a great turnaround in the COVID cases here in Natchez Adams County. I'm really excited that we are now fully into this step in the process toward winning victory over COVID and getting things not just back to normal, but better than normal.
That sounds great. Now, also on Mississippi News Network this morning, they say, now you just get COVID test. They say, but don't go putting on social media your name and your birthday and your patient number because people can pick up on the information from you and they can steal your identity. So
that's very important. You know, for your listeners, it's always good to remind them. We hear of scams all the time, and we get notices from Jackson, from the Attorney General's office, and sometimes even from the governor's office and the Secretary of State's office. You know, they follow these fraudulent companies that come into existence just to scam people. And if anyone calls you and they're asking for personal information, do not give it to them. And if anyone calls you and they've got a deal that's just too good to be true, it probably is. You know, the worst deal is this one, where they call you or they email you and they want to give you all this money, but to get the money, you got to give them money. Now, what's wrong with that? And so we just need people to be careful. We have another scam that's been going on in our community, and I want to use this opportunity to get it out there. We have an understanding, it's happened to me, where someone will call you pretending to be Entergy and telling you that they are outside your home and that they are about to turn your power off, but they can take a payment from you over the phone. If anyone gets a call like that, they need to hang up immediately and they need to call Entergy, because I promise you that's not Entergy. That's a scam. And it has been happening to individuals in our community. And just last week, some of our older citizens were being targeted. So we want everyone to know, be mindful, and also share this information with your loved ones, especially those in your life who are senior adults and are at home and more prone to answer that phone and be a target to this kind of crime.
Well, you speak about that scam, but yesterday I came home and had a call from the city of Natchez. Oh, city of Natchez called me, and I listened to the voicemail, and they said, well, your 2003 Mitsubishi car has expired. The warranty has expired. Please call this number and pay immediately to get you. I'm like, I never had a 2003 Mitsubishi, and I don't think the city of Natchez would be calling.
No, it's crazy. And, you know, and they can copy numbers from all over the place. So you just have to be careful these days. Calvin, I want to change the discussion to a discussion on crime. I know that we have a lot of listeners out there listening in, and they probably saw my post Friday that I was at the state crime lab, and I would like to talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
You know, we have, unfortunately, in our community, we have a number of unsolved crimes. And the reason they're unsolved in most of these cases is really disturbing to me. And it's because our legislature is underfunding our state crime lab. And in fact, funding right now is at a dismal point. So about a year ago, I actually visited the crime lab to see if we could expedite some cases for Natchez, and we did. I was just a candidate for mayor at the time, but, you know, being a lobbyist, I knew people, and we were able to get in there and had a great reception from Sam Howell, the director. Well, it was very nice to return as mayor this past Friday and again meet with Sam Howell. And I just want to share some information with Facebook and with some of your listeners tonight about the state of crime in Mississippi. I don't think people understand it. And it is really a bad situation. And we've got to see it turn around. The state crime lab is very important in processing evidence for cities and counties all across this state. And we are now in a time where this evidence has to be processed by experts in DNA and other analysis because, as you know, it takes a lot more to convict people these days. We've had too many false convictions. Just a couple weeks ago, news story, guy being let out. He'd been falsely imprisoned for 30 years. So we have to go the extra mile to process this evidence. So it requires us to send it to the state crime lab. It sits at the crime lab. And right now we have cases that have been sitting there and evidence in cases sitting in drawers at the crime lab for now not 2 years, but 3 years. And what that means is because they're so backlogged and because they're so underfunded and understaffed, that means that the suspects, likely criminals involved in these cases, are walking free. And while they're walking free because their evidence is locked up, the evidence needed to convict them is literally locked up in a drawer at the crime lab, going on 3 years in some cases, they're committing more crime. Not only that, they could be standing next to you, me, our loved ones, in line at Walmart, at the grocery store, at the bank. And what's really despicable about this is that we have families of victims, not just here in Natchez, but all across our state, who have yet to find closure because not only is the person who killed their loved one still out on the street, but the evidence necessary to convict them is still at the crime lab, and that has got to stop. And so Friday, I was so grateful to have our sheriff with us, Travis Patton. Also, we had 2 fine officers from our Natchez PD assisting. And we sat down with Mr. Howell, and what we couldn't believe is not only did he listen to us as we gave him the list of cases that we needed to be expedited, but he immediately started pulling the cases up right there on the screen, on the big screen. And we got to go through the particulars of a number of very significant murder cases going back 3 years here in Natchez. We were able to connect the dots. We were able to find connections and even inform the crime lab of some things that they did not know because we had our police officers, our investigator, and we had our sheriff there. It was a very productive time. But I want to share this, some statistics that were given to us. Do you know what the payroll is for that crime lab each year? It's
got to be large because
it is.
I look at things just in Jackson.
Calvin is 8.3 million. 8.3 million. Do you know what the legislature funded the crime lab last year? A little more better than that. 7.1. But still short of just making payroll. How do they make up the difference? Well, they charge fees. Fees to Natchez, Adams County, municipalities all across the state. And that even barely gets them by. Then they've had other fees that even criminals pay. And guess what happened in 2016? The state of Mississippi started a new practice in an attempt to balance the budget at the state level, and they swept over $1 million of those funds, and they continue doing this, into the general fund of the state of Mississippi. Those funds intended to fight crime aren't even going to their intended purpose any longer. You know what else we found out? In 1994, they had 45 analysts. And you know how many they have now? 41. And since 1994, because they've cut funding and because they have not been supporting the crime lab, their staffing has gone down. But everybody knows since 1994, crime has gone up. In fact, Mississippi last year had 575 homicides. We now lead the nation per capita in homicides. And yet, we aren't investing the money needed to solve these crimes and get the criminals off the street. You know, what really bothers me about this is, as a small town mayor, I'm on the front line. And I have to meet with the families of these victims whose murderers are still out there, all because our crime lab is 3 years backlogged. Now, I know this for a fact that we have leaders in state government who have run on platforms of being law and order, tough on crime. And it is time that they come off the talk and start putting action behind it. I want to give you another statistic. 2007, a starting analyst with a master's in chemistry, 33,000. That's their salary. 2007. It's about the same now. Virtually unchanged in 13 years. We train them. 150,000 is what it takes to train an analyst. And within 2 years, that trained analyst that we've invested money in training goes to work for another state. Every state around us starts at least at 43,000, 10,000 more than us. We've got to get smart. We deserve more. Mississippi deserves more. Natchez definitely deserves more. So as you can tell, I'm a little upset about it. I'm tired of people being hypocrites and saying they're tough on crime and yet letting our state-of-the-art crime lab in just outside of Jackson, Mississippi, go understaffed and underfunded, and having people all across this state having to deal with the fact that we can't get evidence and we can't convict criminals. It's got to stop.
I agree, Mayor, because I'm glad you brought this out tonight because a lot of people that live in our community may think that it's law enforcement, local law enforcement, but once they do their job and send it to the crime lab, then they have to wait. So I'm glad you bringing this out so people can actually understand how the criminal process works and why things are bagged up and why we haven't got conviction and why we haven't got that person. Because if the evidence locked up in the crime lab, they pretty much put the police department, sheriff department, and the investigators at home.
And they're as frustrated as anybody because they're ready to solve these crimes. Not only that, this is what's really scary about it. We have law enforcement putting their lives on the line every day answering calls. And as we looked at the evidence and we looked at the cases, and it's true of cases all over the state, you would be amazed. You call up one name, John Doe, and that John Doe is linked to a dozen different cases. And it's only a matter of time that we'll have, and it probably has already occurred, an officer in uniform gunned down by someone who should not be free and who should not have a gun, but their evidence is at the crime lab waiting to be processed.
That's very touching, very disturbing, knowing that the funding been cut. Someone that's trained don't make as much money as they should. We got those many cases backlogged, and legislature has money that they're diverting to other areas they could be diverting to what is needed to stop these crimes in the state of Mississippi.
That's right. Do you know that right now we have a third of the drug analysts that we used to have? And drug use has gone out of sight over the last few years. Yet they've had to drop the number of drug analysts because of funding. But let me tell you an item of good news. The director of the crime lab during our meeting, and we were there for over a couple hours going through cases. He said, Natchez, Adams County, you are the elite of the elite. He said, very rarely do they see cities and counties working together, coming in together and meeting with him, asking him to accelerate these cases. He couldn't have been more helpful. And we truly did make progress. And I believe that we did succeed in expediting some cases right here for Natchez, Adams County.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the hardest working mayors I ever known. I've known quite a few mayors, but you being a lobbyist and having contact allows you to enter places that a lot of people can't enter because of those contacts and that friendship you build over the years.
Well, thank you.
Lobbying and in the position. So,
well, I love my job and I love Natchez and Calvin. I want to always give it my best, but yes, it is good to know people who can help you. For example, former Congressman Greg Harper, that crime lab is in what used to be his district, and they know him well because he always fought for them And he took time out to go to our meeting with us Friday also, and he offered a lot of great input. And he and our lobbyist Manny McPhillips in Jackson are already working to see what we can do on the state level to get more funding for the crime lab. And I'm excited to say that our delegation, our senators, our representatives are on board with this, and they also see the need for us to have improved funding.
And like I said, there's great work. You work with great people, Greg Copper and other folks that you name are great people that I know personally. And it's just good to have those phone numbers. People don't understand if you got phone numbers in your cell phone that you can pick the phone up and call and talk to somebody. That means a whole lot.
It really does. It does, and even Thursday evening, got to visit with staff from the Attorney General's office and other longtime, political friends of mine and lobbyist friends, and it was nice being back in Jackson. Actually, it was nice reconnecting and also being there on behalf of Natchez and knowing that we can really get help for Natchez now. We really can.
That's a great thing. And then, like I said, the city and county is working together on a lot of these events. So that's a great thing as well.
We during that visit also discussed funding and support for Morgantown Road, and we're working on a plan. And the new president of the Board of Supervisors, but longtime supervisor Angela Hutchins, we are communicating on that issue, and I hope that we will soon see some progress there. We also discussed the Bellwood Levee project. We're excited to say we may have a good chance of getting that $1 million we need to finish the levee project for our industrial park. That will help us bring more employers in. And then just today, this is exciting, but our own Senator Melanie Sojourner got a very significant bill passed out of committee in the Senate. And this bill would direct a huge percentage, a huge portion of lottery ticket proceeds to municipalities for road and bridge repair. And we hope the Senate will pass it, and we're going to start working on our friends in the House.
There you go. That bill originally was stated when they came up with the Mississippi Lottery that municipalities and county will receive money through impact to do infrastructure in the cities and the counties.
Yes.
And it all wound up going to the state, which I don't know if you recognize when they did out by First Baptist Church last year. They had a sign sitting there saying, "This road has been done by the Mississippi State Lottery."
That's right. That's right. Well, it's time to make sure that happens. I want to end on this note, though. It's very important to note that this today is February the 2nd. So we are now 2 days into Black History Month. And this is a very important month in the year. It's a very important month here in Natchez because, Calvin, it's a time that we pay tribute to those African Americans and those of African descent who were here long before we actually even had an America. What they contributed to the fabric of our society here in Natchez. And I'm excited to say that we will soon, you'll see it on social media, we'll be sharing some Natchez Black History moments where we'll be highlighting some of those from the past and the present. And we were on a call just a few minutes ago prior to coming in. We are also working on a great program toward the end of the month that will be held at the Convention Center, where the city will, in a ceremonial way, convey the 9 parcels of land over to the Park Service that the city is now giving to the National Park Service for forks of the road. And at that same time, we will also celebrate the fact that the state of Mississippi has approved this. And we also got confirmation just yesterday through our lobbyists in Washington that now the funds are on their way and in a few weeks should be here from Washington to assist in that project. So, and we're already gearing up to ask for more money in 2022. So we're going to be celebrating all of this during the month of February. And I just want to do a shout out to everyone listening and on Facebook that this is a time to celebrate harmony, unity, and to celebrate diversity and truly how far we as a community have come.
Well, Mayor, I told the folks when we started this show, if they want to know what's going on, all they got to do is tune in. You done told us we had a lot that's going on, and you've been very busy. You've been doing a great job. But you kind of threw me for a loop. You know, you said this is the second day of February. I said, okay, you've been talking about Groundhog Day and how the groundhog saw his shadow and how we're going to have 6 more bad weeks of winter. But you know, you threw me because that, when I woke up this morning and I was watching the Today Show, they said the date February the 2nd. Let's see what the groundhog do. And you started out saying, you know, date February 2nd. I said, you must watch the Today Show.
Didn't get to watch it this morning, but do we know, has the groundhog?
Yeah, he saw a shadow this morning. They say 6 more weeks of winter.
Well, that's probably true of everybody up in New York, but I'm predicting an early spring here in Natchez.
I agree with you. I welcome it. But Mayor, it's always a pleasure to have you on Tuesday night for the Natchez Renewal Show. And I tell the folks all the time, if you want to know what's going on, tune in on Tuesday night with Dan, the man Gibson. Mayor, thank you for coming on, and we hope you have a great evening. Okay?
Thank you. Calvin, God bless you,
God bless you too, man.
and everyone listening.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to listen to Mayor Dan Gibson telling you what's going on in the Miss Lou, what's going on in Natchez. You can tune in every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. except for the 4th Tuesday. You have a meeting on that night. But thanks for